Hey guys, welcome to Heart to Talk, the podcast. I am your host, Teresa Caesar, and you are tuned into episode 19. Wellness is the complete integration of body, mind, and spirit. The realization that everything we do, think, feel, and believe has an effect on our state of well-being. Greg Anderson. I'm so excited to bring to you today's guest, Rance Hayes, who is a wellness and preventative healthcare practitioner, which is basically an advanced personal trainer. He knows the significance of complete integration of body, mind, and spirit. He has over 26 years of training busy executives, entrepreneurs, and athletes. Rance is the master at helping people who are striving to have a happy, healthy, and successful life. He teaches them how to create extraordinary, long-term, sustainable results. I bring to you my conversation with the creator of the Elevated Method.
I've been changing lives for 27 years now in the wellness industry. Initially, I got into personal training as an athlete. I was playing football at the time, and I was really trying to just get into the best shape possible. And I ended up working with other athletes initially, so they saw what I was doing to condition myself, and they wanted a piece of it. They wanted some of the magic. So I started to work with other athletes initially. And then what I realized slowly but surely over time is that most people are not even close to being in athletic shape. The average person today doesn't work out. In fact, 80% of Americans don't work out 3 times or more a week.
Wow.
Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So what I realized is that I enjoy working with athletes because of their drive, their determination, their ability to operate outside of their comfort zone and take on challenges that the average person is unwilling to. But I also recognize that there's a larger problem that I can help with. And as much as I would like working with athletes, what I realize is that, the average person today is really deconditioned.
Wow.
And that's just because we spend so much time sitting down in front of a computer, sitting down in front of a TV, sitting down in front of our phones, wherever we are. We're a lot less active today.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the way that people worked, like, my parents, your parents, their parents, everybody was a lot more physically active. They were walking a lot more. When my mom lived in France for a short period of time, I shared this with you and Annette, but she lived in France for about 4 years. And when we went to visit her, she would go to the local market in the morning and get fresh produce, fresh stuff for breakfast and lunch, and get fresh baked goods, but then just enough food for like 2 days. That's it,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
walk down to the market, you get enough fresh food for 2 days, you prepare that food, then you go back to the market 2 days later and you restock. Well, here in America, what people do is they go to Costco and
Mm.
they stock up on, processed, enriched foods that really are horrible for you, but we can keep them in our shelves or in our cabinets for months at a time. So the problem is that people aren't eating properly and people aren't moving enough. And this is a trend that is accelerated over the 27 years that I've been training. It's a little frustrating to watch because you would think with all the technology and all the information that we have today that people would be more inclined to work out, that people would be more, excited or enthusiastic about taking care of themselves. But the reality is that that's actually not the truth. All of the stats show that with all of this technology and with all of this information, there's not really a correlation to people moving more.
And what do you think that is? Do you think there's a block that people have?
The bottom line is there are 2 different camps. There are people who are proactive, who recognize that we're going to die. And if we don't take care of ourselves, they recognize that time and gravity are berating on us every single day. So if you're not doing something to counterbalance or counteract that energy, it's just breaking your body down. Now, proactive people understand that. Proactive people understand there are certain things in life that I can't control. I can't control gravity. I can't control time. I'm going to age whether I like it or not. But what I can control is how I age, right? What I can control is how I interact with people every single day, how I perform at work every single day, how I show up for my partner every single day. People want to have happier, healthier, more successful lives. I had a guy ask me yesterday, he said, Rance, can your program help me spend more time with my son, right? And live longer. And in my mind, I was thinking, like, yeah, obviously, like that's what exercise does, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
exercise extends your lifeline, it makes you feel better, and it makes you more efficient in everything that you do. So, of course, if you're an extremely busy person, like a lot of my clients, and you want to be more efficient, the most impactful thing that you can do to become more efficient is to work out.
Yeah.
Right? So proactive people get that. The people on the other camp are people who are reactive. And that's
Ooh, I like
the
that. Yeah.
majority of the people that we see they're in that camp. They're reactive. So they wait. And it's not just listen, Teresita, as well as I do that
Yeah.
it's not just about training, it's also in relationships, it's also in communication, it's in
Mhm.
business, we see this pervasive in our culture everywhere. It's a mentality that says, I'm not going to take the energy or invest the energy into this thing to do it the right way the first time. I'm just going to do it so that it can get done, just get it over with. And then when it becomes a problem, then I'll invest all the time. So you see that in relationships,
Yeah.
right? It's like people can show up. If you just showed up every single day for your partner, if you just gave them the same energy, the
Mhm.
same enthusiasm, the same passion that you did when you met them, then a lot of the problems that you're experiencing right now wouldn't exist. But the
I
problem is
love
that
that.
you have assumed, like a lot of people do with their health, that everything is just going to work itself out. So you don't need to show up. So you take your health for granted until it falls apart. And then when it falls apart, then you're reactive. Then you go, oh, yeah, I got to go to the doctor. I got to go to a chiropractor. Now I got to get into a martial art. Now I got to get a trainer. It's like I try to encourage people not to wait until your house is on fire to do something, you know?
It transcends in so many levels. Do you consider yourself also someone that works with folks on like mind, body, and soul? Do you feel like it's a package deal ultimately?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a firm believer that all three things have to work in synchronicity for you to really experience ultimately what we all want. I think whether we realize it or not, whatever your religious or spiritual beliefs are, I think that we all want to achieve a certain level of enlightenment. We all want to achieve a certain level of elevation or ascension in our lives. We want to ascend to a certain place where we feel like, everything that we've done in our lives has culminated to this point where we feel happy and successful, and we're not stressing out every single day. And the bottom line is that you can't achieve that if you're only focusing on physical fitness. Like most people that I know, they want long-term sustainable solutions, they want stability, they want reliability, but they don't know how to get there. And they've been so conditioned throughout their lives to focus on short term satisfaction.
Yeah.
So what we're finding right now is that a lot of people um, aren't having a whole experience. The average person who's working out right now, 10% of people who work out on their own actually achieve their fitness goals. 10%. That's it. 10% who work out on their own. And the reason being is that most people don't understand all of the components that are necessary for you to be successful. So I equate it to this. It's like, in order for me to perform a proper squat, I have to understand how much energy it takes to perform that movement proficiently, right? Now,
Yeah.
if I don't understand the nuances of squatting, if I don't understand the mechanics as far as proper breathing, proper range of motion, proper form, then how am I supposed to perform a proper squat? I'm just guessing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And I think
Yeah.
that's
And
what
it,
most people do when it comes to their well-being. They
yeah,
guess
with
and they're
all
like, well,
areas. I could see that. That's a great metaphor.
right. They're like, well, I'll do some of this because this makes me feel good. But then they don't see the connection between their body, their mind, and their spirit. They don't understand. It's like if you're driving your car and you're only putting gasoline in your car, but you're not putting oil in your car, and you're not putting coolant in your car, and you're not changing, or checking the tire pressure. If you're not doing all of the necessary components, your car is not operating optimally. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? It's the same thing with our
absolutely.
bodies and our lives. Like everybody wants to have a heightened experience in this life, yet at the same time, most people don't understand that the way that you get there is by addressing your body. So you wake up every single day, you fuel yourself properly, you exercise, right? You stimulate the
Mhm.
internal organs, circulation. And then beyond that, you have to address your mind and your spirit, because if you don't address your mind, then the physical transformation won't stick.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the questions that I always ask people when they come to me is, okay, so we have your goals. Now, what are the compelling reasons to support those goals?
Do you have them give you an answer? Like, do you ask them those activating questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where we spend, a fair amount of time, depending on the person.
Yeah.
We'll go deep into that
Mhm.
area of the conversation because that's where they're really emotionally pulled.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I try to get people to understand is that it's the emotion that drives you, right? It's the emotion that's going to pull you through those periods of your process when you don't want to show up. So for example, like the emotion that I feel when I talk about being able to leave behind a legacy for my daughters, right? Or the emotion that I feel when I talk about being able to help 1 million people elevate their well-being. That's the energy that helps to get me out of bed when I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
When there are days when I feel like I don't want to show up, I'm reminded that I'm not just doing this for myself, that I'm doing it for other people. And I think that when people start their workout journey, if they're not really clear on what their goals and their compelling reasons are, the mental aspect, then what ends up happening is that some things happen in life. And you know this, you're a mother,
Yeah.
right? You're a busy
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
person.
absolutely. Mhm.
Things happen in life, they come up. You could be going through 1 million different things in your life that could steer you off course, right? But if you're really clear about what your goals are and why you're pursuing them, so we got the physical and the
Mhm.
mental aspect, then it makes it easier for you to sustain your process,
That
right?
makes
And
so
then the
much sense.
last part is the spiritual part. And this is the part that a lot of people overlook today. We hear a lot of terms like foo-foo magic, right? A lot of like,
Woo-woo, they call it.
yeah, woo-woo, pie in the sky, aluminum helmet, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
look, spirituality has been around, the practice of spirituality has been around a lot longer than any religion, right?
Mhm.
And the bottom line is that when we talk about spirituality in this context, what I'm talking about is you tapping into who you are, your energy. That's your spirit. You're a spirit inhabiting a body, right? And so once you understand that, you understand that you're not limited
I love that.
because you're a spirit. There are no limitations for the spirit inhabiting this body, right? The only limitations that I have, that we have, that anybody has are the limitations that we impose upon ourselves. So once you start practicing your spirituality, in other words, once you get in tune with the reality of who and what you are. So I'm not talking about anybody's opinions. I'm talking about science, right?
Yeah.
Science and spirituality. This is a fact. Like
Mhm.
it's beyond argument, right? So the fact of the matter is that we are all energy. And once you learn how to manipulate that energy effectively, like by meditating so that you can align your energy with source, right? And really learn how to focus and breathe properly, right? Then it gets easier for you to attract the things that you want in your life because you're in alignment with what's real, with what's true. And so I don't want to get into a lot of times people confuse spirituality and religion. This has nothing to do with anybody's opinion, has nothing to do with dogma, has nothing to do with any of that, has everything to do with energy. That's it. And the reality is that we are all comprised of atoms, right? Which are limitless potential energy. So once you learn, okay, my body, needs to be tended to every single day, right? I have to move my body every single day to stimulate my circulation, the blood and the oxygen flow, to stimulate the neurons in my brain so that I think on a higher level, and to release serotonin and dopamine so that I feel better, right? I'm happier. Then once I've done that, then I can focus on the psychological component, and I can start, surrounding myself with like-minded people, or reading books or listening to podcasts that stimulate me or educate me with regard to my well-being, self-development, personal development. And then the last thing is the spirituality, which is just a reality. That the spirituality, the idea behind that is just taking enough time every day to sit and breathe by yourself and acknowledge that all of these things that we invest so much time and energy into, all that craziness that
Mhm.
we
Yeah, the
get involved in
illusions
every
that,
day
yeah. Mhm.
is really not that important,
It
you
isn't.
know?
No, I
And
love that you said that.
yeah, and being able to have that spiritual practice, being able to meditate and to get in tune with yourself and really bring your energy like to a really calm and
Mhm.
focused level, it just makes it easier to do
Mhm.
everything. You realize like you're at peace, you know?
That's beautiful. I wanted to ask you, you're known for the elevated method. Can you tell us?
It's
What does
the
that mean to
elevated.
you?
So the elevated method is it's a process or philosophy that I've developed over my 27 years of training. Initially, when I started, I called my company Constant Elevation. And
Ooh,
I got that term from a rapper named Rakim. Back in the days, there was a group called
yeah.
Eric B. and Rakim. And he had a song called I Ain't No Joke. And in that song, there was a line where he talked about constant elevation. And one of the things I love about old school hip hop is the like real like educational component of it,
Mhm.
that we don't get today in today's rap. So he really inspired me when I was younger, just as far as really teaching people, the Black community, and specifically
Yeah.
teaching us how to develop ourselves, how to empower ourselves. And so I got the term from there, constant elevation. And then as I've grown, I watched my mom go through depression when I was younger,
Wow.
which was a really difficult thing to endure, because I didn't have any context. When I was younger, I didn't understand anything about depression. I mean, I can
Yeah.
remember telling her when she was trying to explain it to me, I can remember vividly telling her to get over it because
Yeah.
I
'Cause
didn't
you're like,
know.
"What?"
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was just like, it just sounds like you're, making things harder for yourself. Get over it, right? And then, so fortunately, I got to watch her go through that process, and I realized very quickly how serious it was for her. And then I had the, good fortune or misfortune of going through my own stint of depression. And
Wow.
so when I went through my stint of depression, and I don't know, for those of you who are listening to this, you can relate if you've been through depression and you've suffered from anxiety. I was in a really dark place where it was like I was in a rabbit hole and I couldn't climb out. It not like no matter what I tried to do every single day, I just didn't have the energy or the enthusiasm or even the care or the desire to do anything. So the elevated method really is about understanding that we're always in process. We're always in process. When I went through that period of my life, I thought that I was dying. I can remember sitting there certain days like I didn't know if I was going to make it to the next day. And the reason why I developed the elevated method is because I wanted to develop a transformational process or program that would support people where they are, would meet people exactly where they are, no matter what your background
Yeah.
is, no matter what you're struggling with, whether it's depression or anxiety, or if you've just gone through a divorce, or if you've put on 100 pounds, and you don't want to be obese anymore, wherever you are, I'm going to meet you where you are, and then I'm going to walk you through a progressive conditioning process that involves mind, body, and spirit to help you get to a place where you're more self confident, where you learn how to love yourself again. You know what I mean? Where you understand how to prioritize your well being so that you can live an elevated life. And to me, that's really what it's about. It's about living a heightened experience. And that's where the term elevated came from.
I love that. I feel elevated just by that explanation. That's beautiful. And thanks for sharing and being courageously vulnerable with your experience with depression. That's super inspiring. What events or life challenges would you say has made you become the man you are today?
I would say all of it, to be
Mhm.
honest. I mean, everything that I've been through, probably one of the larger defining pieces of my life was my experience from the fourth grade until eighth or ninth. My mom worked for IBM. She got transferred, and
Oh,
we ended up
wow.
moving to Old Greenwich, Connecticut. And, you have to understand at that time, this is in the late 80s.
Okay.
So at that time, I was the only person of color in my entire school.
Oh my goodness.
It was a really difficult process for me to endure. I endured a lot of racism while I was there. So they thought that it would be a good idea for me to go to a boarding school. So I went to a boarding school, and I want to say it was more of like a hippie kind of school. Like they were
Oh, interesting.
more open minded. Yeah, they were more open
Is that where
minded.
you learn to meditate? Is that where you learn to meditate?
No, 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 no. That's
That
where I
came later.
learned how to. That's where I learned how to talk to women.
Oh, the flirting school.
Yeah, no meditation. So that really impacted me a lot. Um, a lot of, a handful of life-threatening situations. More recently, I ran a business. I've had a studio before COVID hit. First week that I opened up the studio, one of my sisters died.
Oh
The
my
first week,
gosh.
yeah,
I'm
the
so
first
sorry for
week.
your loss. I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
I ended up losing that studio. So it was almost like just a bad omen, like it wasn't meant to be. Um, and that is actually what led me to online training, which is what I'm doing right now.
Wow.
But yeah, there are a lot of things that I've gone through in my life that have shaped and molded the person that I am today. I don't live with regrets. I know a lot of people go through life and they're like, oh, well, I really regret that this happened and I hate that this happened, and they feel victimized. And,
Mhm.
when I was depressed, one of the reasons why I felt that way is because I had a victim mindset. And I
Ooh.
really, in my mind, I felt, oh my God, this is so horrible. All these things are happening to me. I went through a divorce. 4 of my friends died in the span of 6 months. My teenage daughter was going crazy. Life happens to everybody. And a lot of times people don't talk about the things that they go through. So while you're sitting here whining and complaining about your experience, you don't understand, you're not realizing that there are people right next to you that might be going through something 10 times more difficult, you know? And so I always try to maintain that perspective. I think it's really healthy, especially if you live in this country. No matter how bad things are for you, you have to realize that there are people who are living in other countries that are enduring things that we would never even imagine,
Mhm.
that we can't imagine, that we don't want to imagine. And so in my practice, in my training, when I work with people, one of the things that I try to do is I try to get people to get back to a space of being grateful for who they are and where they are in their lives, regardless of, how much they weigh or how broken their body is or where their self-confidence is. Because at the end of the day, you're alive and you have the opportunity to create change, you know?
I love that. I'm with you on the gratitude.
I mean, everything that we go through shapes us. I feel like you have an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to be inspired by people and by your environment as long as you're open to it.
I'm going to ask you my ending questions. It's like my little tradition to close up the episode. So the first one, Rance, what is the best advice you have to offer? If you can give somebody a piece of advice, what would it be?
My best advice would be to live out loud, to live life out loud.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that.
I think that I don't think I know that when we come into the world, we come into the world with gifts. All of us do. We'll have our own unique gifts that we've been equipped with for a purpose. We've been provided this purpose. And what happens is as we grow, we come into the world, we're exposed to other people's fears and their sadness and their anger, their negative energy and their projections. And most of us don't grow up in environments where we're taught how to protect ourselves from that energy. And so what ends up happening is that you grow up with all of these ideas about how to live your life that aren't your ideas. You grow up with these limitations that have been imposed on you by other people, and those limitations have nothing to do with you. They have everything to do with the people around you who were afraid or angry or sad, or for one reason or another, unable or unwilling to pursue their own dreams. And so they project the stuff onto you. And what you have to realize as you grow is that, it's really about being able to tap into that energy. You know what I mean? And so Albert Einstein said that logic will only take you so far, and that your imagination will take you everywhere.
Ooh.
Right? And so the reason why I share that is because I think that a lot of people are living their lives in very limited ways. They're limited by their beliefs. They're limited by other people's ideas. And so they go through their lives not really ever having a full experience. So my best advice would be, don't allow your life experience to be defined or dictated by other people's limitations.
Ooh, that's good.
Right? Make sure that you're really living life elevated on your terms.
Oh, stay elevated with Rance. I love that. That's so the bomb. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Second question. What is your favorite quote? I know you just gave me a quote, but what's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote. I'm going to say it's an affirmation, actually. So there's a book I'm going to recommend for you guys that are listening. There's a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Ooh.
Yeah, really good book. And in the book, there's a positive affirmation that they use. He's speaking to a spiritual practitioner in the book. And this is an attorney who's made millions and millions of dollars as an attorney in New York City, who's trying to find himself, right? And so he goes on this spiritual journey, and he's talking to this monk, and the monk shares a quote with him. And the quote is, or the affirmation is, "I am more than I appear to be. All the world's strength and power rests in me." And so I share that affirmation with you guys, to practice. Because a lot of times, like I said earlier, we undervalue or we underestimate our power. And we don't operate like we are spirits. We operate like we're humans. We operate as if we have limitations. So if you can remind yourself every single day that I am more than I appear to be, all the world's strength and power rests in me. And if you can really believe that, really soak it up, you'll see some beautiful things happen.
Oh my gosh. You speak in my language because I am the affirmation babe. So I'm like, you had me at affirmation. Yes. That is one of my biggest methods on living your best life is affirming everything in your favor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. You're incredible. Okay. The last question. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, if I have to say one, because I like a lot of books. So my favorite book, if I'm going to share a book that I recommend people reading, is called The Celestine Prophecy.
Ooh, never heard of it.
Celestine Prophecy. And so that book is a part of a 3-part series, I believe. But if you're a spiritual person and you're looking to get more understanding of the world that we live in and how things work, and you want to understand energy more effectively, The Celestine Prophecy is a good book.
I do hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rance Hayes. Remember to hit subscribe, rate, and tell all your friends about this podcast. For more information, you could visit my website at www.teresacaesar.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll be back in 2 weeks.